It's good to be alive. But it's best to live. Want to say good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Wncr-Tv Now as we talk about things impacting our state, our city, and our nation. 14 minutes past 8 o'clock hour this morning. 14 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour on this Monday morning, August the 4th, 2025, a day we have never seen, and so glad to be a part of it. Of course, throughout today's broadcast, you can share the Facebook Live video. You can like it. You can comment on it. You can do all of those things right here this morning, and so certainly appreciate you when you do that. And then, of course, ultimately have that conversation with people throughout the community as well. Just sharing myself, saying good morning to all of those who are yet tuned in to the WNCR-TV. Now, those who may be listening via WAJA 102.5 FM, good morning to you. Those who may be listening by regular television on 21.1 over the air, good morning to you. Those who may be watching and listening and viewing on cable television on Optimum Cable, Channel 20 or 113, good morning to you as well. We thank each and every one of you for tuning in to WNCR-TV. And, of course, we cannot forget our Facebook Live viewers. And so throughout the program, we'll be shouting those out to say good morning. And we'll shout you out this morning as well. And those who, of course, I talk to in the community who listen and watch, we appreciate each and every one of you all for sure. For sure we do. What is going on in Texas? I think that is the question. That is the question. What is going on in Texas? Texas is yeah, stop right there. Stop right there. Of course, Texas is looking at redrawing maps, redistricting yet again. And so let's kind of look at that. In an attempt to block Republicans from aggressively redrawing Texas congressional maps in their favor, House Democrats have left the state on Sunday. The Texas Constitution requires 2/3 of the House members to be present to conduct legislative business, and Democrats' absence denies the GOP a quorum. Yeah, strategy there. The proposed map the GOP put forth last week could potentially eliminate 5 Democrats from the U.S. House seats ahead of the 2026 midterms. Such a partisan change may have significant repercussions in Washington, where House Republicans are entering a challenged midterm landscape with razor-thin margins. We will not be complicit in destruction of our own communities, the Texas House Democratic Caucus Chair Gene Wu said. Governor Greg Abbott has threatened to remove any lawmakers who don't appear when the state convenes this afternoon. So that's going to be a interesting situation. But again, as we always say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And yeah, so they say, hey, we can't, I don't know how we continue to be in the mess that we're in. Well, I do know, because oftentimes people don't participate in the voting process. And so those people who do, who try to help and assist and change the landscape of our communities and work on building and growth, oftentimes can't be completed because there is a overwhelming power to say they won't change, but really don't want change, to say they want growth, but really don't want growth. To say they want opportunities, but really don't want opportunities. And so you deal with that, and then you have people who will get into office and will try to hold that office by any means necessary. And that means to carve out maps in which they believe a constituent base will most likely vote in their favor to change the landscape of what the Texas delegation to the crazy place called Washington, D.C., where those folks will go and represent congressional issues and concerns. The challenge is, because of the razor-thin margin in D.C. currently, because of the amazing work of people all across this country to try to get to a more balanced conversation in Washington, whatever that means, right? That you need everybody working together, singing from the same sheet of music in order to really move things forward. Otherwise, it's bickering going back and forth, and you can only afford to lose one, only afford to lose two. And what that actually does on every single issue is embolden a singular person or maybe two or three people to be those holdouts and to get whatever it is they may want. And oftentimes they get absolutely nothing, which is quite interesting too. And they get nothing because of the political bullying that continues to go on throughout this nation as well. I'm not going to say never before, because there were certainly, you had some bully dog presidents in our history in America as well. And you've had some bully leaders of agencies and things of that nature that could kind of make people be in lockstep and in line with each other. So this is not uncommon to America's political theater. Certainly those who are students of history would know that. But it is something that at one time people were working against so that it never happens again. But the voter apathy that has taken place since such time has created what we find ourselves in today. And where do we go from here? That's going to be the under theme, or underlying theme, should I say, throughout now in the next year's midterm elections. And of course, you've got municipal elections going on this year. In fact, next month you'll start voting in municipal elections. And then November as well. And some have even voted in August, literally. Going to be voting this month as well for elections. And then, of course, in other states, they voted in July for a couple of different primaries, things of that nature, for them to have their general election in November. So there's a lot of voting opportunities going on, but there's, again, a lack of excitement or I mean, you would say that you really would be excited about voting, but just understand it's your responsibility to vote. Just understand it's your responsibility to vote. And so voting, I guess, should it be exciting? I think maybe not, maybe so. I mean, just an eye of the beholder. But I think it should be a responsibility that somehow or another is not embedded into our foundation in America. In fact, you have some religions who don't believe in voting at all. And so they don't believe in voting because it's casting lots or whatever it is that their rationale behind the ideal of voting. But yet at the same time, those individuals, whether you participate or not, there's some elected official who's going to control what the speed limit is on your particular street or neighborhood. There's an elected official who's going to control what your light bill utility rate is. There's some elected official who's going to charge or be in control of, rather, what the insurance rates are going to be. Going to be in charge of what minimum wage is, going to be in charge of labor disputes when there's a dispute between the labor workforce and those type of things. And so all of these governmental entities that you are involved in every single day, including collecting Social Security upon your retirement, or I say retirement, but eligibility for to take benefit of such program, all of those things involve government. And so if, I would think, we would want those things to work in our favor, that we would understand the responsibility that we have as individuals to participate in the process of being sure that there are people put in place that will have the fiscal sense of responsibility to say, you know what, because I have the fiduciary responsibility controlling other folks' money, because it ain't my money, that I want to be sure that they can never say that I misspent governmental funds, that I misappropriated funds, or that I made a decision that intentionally made a decision to harm or hurt a community or the constituent base in which I am serving. That's supposed to be what elected officials are talking about, and having that mindset. However, you have some that will have their own personal goals and agendas and everything else. And oftentimes you'll find that many of them will go into a political space near about broke and come back out with a whole bunch of money. You just wonder how in the world did that happen? Now, granted, some might have been up and coming business owners and things of that nature, and so they were able to expand from that. Or what often happens is they will use their position for personal gain and power, and oftentimes they'll ultimately get set up and they go to jail for it. from taking bribes, from doing whatever it is. And so, and not everybody's caught, that's for sure. But there are some that is caught, and then depending on who it is caught, they'll say, well, such and such did it too, so I should too. And that don't work. That don't work. Okay. Of course, phone lines are open today, 252-407-8432. That's 252-407-8432. I want to say thank you for Allison Williams and Deborah Gunner for sharing the Facebook Live video this morning. We certainly appreciate each and every one of you there. And those who've tuned in thus far and said good morning, that includes Gwendolyn Swain, Mr. Johnson there, Lucy Boyer, Irma Maxwell, Deborah Gunter, Elder Harris, Venice Harris, Venice Harris, Allison Williams, Gloria Brake, Lorraine Pitts, and Larry Whitley and Candy Station says, hey, are you really going to blame the voters? Yeah, everybody has a responsibility to participate. So it is certainly everybody responsibility to participate in the voting process. And so when those folks who choose not to vote enable bad people to get in office, the voter did what they were supposed to do. They went out and voted not to elect that guy or that woman into office. And because other folks stayed at home, they participated, we're not participating. So absolutely, the onus is on every citizen in America. That is one of the rights that you still have currently. And I don't know the way it's going. Will that right still be afforded to citizens in tomorrow? We'll just say tomorrow, as early as tomorrow, right? I'm about to say in years to come, but no, we're going to say tomorrow. Because I think that you have a governmental situation that currently exists that I do believe that, and somebody told me this before the last race, and I said, I just believe people are going to do what needs to be done. I just said that ain't going to happen. And so, nope, I just don't think that. That's okay. Well, we'll see after the race. But anyway, anytime you can have the type of language that comes out of Washington, D.C., and in particular 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, that and oftentimes is language to divide people, language to belittle people, and then there's this acceptance. An example is our current Senator Tom Tillis, who recently, and maybe even times past, had some troubles with some issues of going along to get along type situation. And you had him finally say, look, I'm voting for this big, beautiful bill. Is going to do more damage to my state, North Carolina, and those folks who elected me into office. He had the conscience and the presence of mind to say it's not about aligning with party ideology, but it should be about keeping the citizens first. So when he makes such a decision, then there is the tweets and the backlash from, again, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Homestead. I don't know where he was at the time he made the tweet. And then others who belittled Tillis. And, of course, Tillis got censured because of some act he did some years ago as well. And so you have that whole situation going on with him. Then flipped on the reverse side, on the Democratic side, you have a Representative Shelley Willingham who says, you know what, maybe because he has a conscience, he made no statement about why he voted the way he did or whatever he did, contrary to what Tom Tillis did, to vote in support of. Let's look at. Hold on. Want to go to that while I'm thinking about it here. Let's see, NC governor. And let's look at News press releases. Let's look at his. Well, he done did a whole bunch of stuff now, so it's probably better to go to NC Ledge. But they may be gone now. Let's see. Let's see if they're still there. Oh, they're still there. Okay, so let's look at. I gotta do two things. So I gotta go back to my Facebook page. And I don't want to say that he supported something he didn't support. So I want to be sure I get the right bills, because he didn't support every bill. So I will say that in his regard there. But I do want to get okay. So House Bill 193. So let's look at House Bill 193 that he did the veto override. So House Bill 193, this is what was said in Governor Stein's message. House Bill 193, an act to provide that certain employees and volunteers at non-public schools may carry certain weapons on educational property when authorized by the school board or trustees of the school administrative director, to provide that a person may carry a concealed handgun on educational property that has a location, both a school and a place of religious worship, when attending worship service and other functions at the place of religious worship, to increase the punishment imposed for an assault or threat against an executive officer, legislative officer, court officer, or local elected official, to require pretrial release conditions for any person charged with assaulting or making a threat against an executive officer, legislative officer, court officer, local elected official, or an elected officer to be determined by a judge, to provide additional protections for restrictions on the use of relocate law enforcement shooting ranges. So this is what Josh Stein said in regards to the bill. The bill would make our children less safe. Just as we should not allow guns in General Assembly, we should keep them out of our schools unless they are in possession of law enforcement. Law enforcement officers receive more than 800 hours of public safety training, including firearm training. On top of that, school resource officers receive additional training to know how to respond to crisis and how to de-escalate conflict, a requirement I supported when I was Attorney General. We cannot substitute the protection offered by well-trained law enforcement officers by asking teachers and school volunteers to step in and respond to crisis while armed. Just last year, an employee at a religious school in Greensboro left a gun in the bathroom that was later found by an elementary student. I support, however, the provisions legislation that better protects local elected officials from threats to their safety, and urge General Assembly to send me a clean bill with those protections so I can sign it. So Governor Stein's veto message was solely on the idea of having schools being able to have handguns there, and they're not trained. He gave a well-positioned message in his veto message. He gave an incident in which happened in Greensboro, North Carolina, so not some other state, but here in Guilford County, North Carolina, in which a gun was left in the bathroom because of the lack of training. And to substitute his words, the staff, the well-trained staff of police and law enforcement agencies all across this state. Right? Again, he said, hey, the other stuff, I get it. Just send me a bill with that by itself, and I'll sign it. But instead, there are those in the General Assembly, and one Democrat, that Democrat happened to be Shelley Willingham, on this particular measure, who believed that putting guns on the campus of certain schools, when approved by the school board trustees and the school administrative director, that they can carry a concealed handgun on educational properties. Now, we also have seen videos where teachers have a bad day, they lose it, they're fighting students because of whatever student might say. And how do we know? Again, because of lack of training and etc., that the next news story we see is because of this law that North Carolina just enacted. A highly seasoned, well thought of teacher who was able to carry a handgun on campus had a bad day, had an altercation with a child, and inflicts harm on that child and perhaps even harm on themselves. And not saying that this law will prevent that from happening before the law, because truly a teacher could have carried a gun prior to that and did it. But now, when that thing is accessible, again, I've lived in a time where a teacher came to school and would drink alcohol all day. So you have a teacher who is dealing with whatever depression or whatever alcoholism, and brings that to the schoolhouse. Top that with now the access of a gun. You're just really walking into some very interesting situations. But again, that's just one of the situations that we saw. And so I don't know why Representative Willingham couldn't say, I agree with our governor. Or maybe he agreed that you should have handguns with students and teachers, because that's essentially what you're going to end up having. That we say we don't want kids with guns because there's so many young people committing crimes now. And so the teacher brings a gun in school, then forget to lock it up, don't want to report that it's missing. Child gets it. So now you're giving access to. And again, you also have to look at, is this another situation of trying to get weapons to children and using governmental authorized law now to say, oops, it was an accident. I didn't know that we put 24, 50 new handguns in the hands of children because of a careless mistake that a teacher made while authorized by the General Assembly. And someone will say, hey, you doing a lot of hypotheticals. But a lot of things that we say are hypothetical, we end up reading news stories about it or headlines about it or attending funerals because of it. That's just a tangent that I went down this morning. Hey, caller, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. I hope you are.
That's good. Yeah, doing good. Listening to the conversation and enjoying it. For me, the topic with the firearms, I don't have a problem with a school board or whoever decides, if these are people that are voted in those positions. Most people vote on them for their wisdom. If they decide a certain individual amongst them or individuals amongst them are responsible enough, maybe have some background, military background, whatever it may be, I don't have a problem with them and some guidelines of following, having a firearm, of them having one in a school. I don't think it's fair to say, well, this one person in some other town left a gun in the bathroom, and so nobody this law should be thrown out. I mean, because you have bad officers, right? Like we have people, we every year or every election year, it's something that happens, and people are criticizing police officers for one individual's actions. And so, I don't think it's fair to lump all officers with the actions of one. I don't think it's fair to lump what a responsible individual with a firearm would do just because of the irresponsibility of one. And I didn't follow up on the story, but I know just recently it was a man who went in the grocery store with a knife and stabbed like 11 people. And it took one citizen with a firearm to stop the situation. And so my wife kept asking me, how in the world does somebody stab 11 people? And I was like, well, a lot of people just get into a situation when they just panic and they don't think we can outnumber this person, and especially with a knife, but they don't think we can outnumber this person, and they don't resist. And you have a mass kind of attack like that until a responsible person comes around that knows how to use a firearm and can stop the threat. Because a lot of these people, when they choose to go into churches, when they choose to go into schools, they're going to places they know and believe that people will not have firearms. And they check up on it, and and a lot of churches have started to have certain individuals carry firearms for the protection of the churches, because you don't know who will come in. And it's not like our country, we're not in a country where we're putting up 10 commandments in the classroom. We're not talking about God. We're not dealing with the depression that you mentioned of our youth and what they're going through. And I don't think this is a ploy to get guns in the hands of kids at all. I think it's an attempt to prevent a tragedy, because it's always every time these things happen, it's the school or somebody saying we didn't think it would happen here. And so right. I'm fine with authorized teachers in the classroom having a firearm in maybe in a drawer, maybe in a safe in the drawer or something, because normally when alarms go off and there's an active shooter, the doors are locked and they're in the classroom. So I'm fine with people in the classroom having a firearm to protect themselves and the kids that we send to school from whoever will go into that building to try to harm and make a statement and then try to kill themselves or, unalive themselves, whatever.
And so you do realize that this is not for public schools, that this is for non-public schools. So this has nothing to do with public. So you started off talking about, and I just said, let me get y'all thought out, but it was for non-public schools. And so you talk about people voting these people into office. We don't vote non-public people into office. So they are generally appointed by somebody, whoever started their school or whatever. And so sometimes those charter schools and non-public schools end up dissolving because they don't have the oversight that's in place, or the academic there doesn't be what it needs to be. So, but I guess even hearing that, your argument would still be the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't see. Yeah. I mean, because if you look at the statistics, I just value good people with firearms. I know there's a lot of evil people, a lot of wicked people, and people who would just do stuff just to do it. And the reason never makes sense, or if you even get a reason, because if they even make it out the situation. And then we just recently, you hear so much about people going into a building with a firearm, or people going into a home and whatever. But no, I don't have a problem with firearms and in the school, because I get the idea of wanting to be proactive and not have 15 or 10 people, multiple people hurt before the officers get there and so can really do something. And no, I don't want an accident or anything. I don't want to. I don't like. I think the root of our problems, obviously is not firearms, but the fact that you got kids in school being disrespectful to teachers, authorities, willing to yell, willing to fight, and then the quality sometimes of substitute teachers or people that end up in the school, like it's those are all problems that need to be fixed, but and in their own way. But I think with this situation, I think I don't fault churches that do it as well, because I
go back to the non-public schools that sometimes qualifications are way slimmer than our public education systems, with the requirements of trainings, the requirement of education, the requirements of a lot of things that public school officials have to go through to provide education to students compared to charter schools and that of private sectors. And so, again, one of the things that Governor Stein talked about in his veto message was the lack of training as to why he don't support it. And again, I don't know how you become a responsible gun owner without having training.
I mean, the training that you get is, the main training is I want to say at the range, but you can have a person instructing you. But the main thing is just how to properly, safely use your firearm, and that's why I say, like, whoever these individuals are that will be put into place to say, yes, we will allow you to have a firearm, and how, because at a church maybe not the maybe it's different system of how they're operating, the private schools or whatever like that in the church, but they still, I would imagine, elect individuals to have those, and maybe not say every teacher that works with us can have one. That wouldn't be smart, but I mean, we don't, these people still, we say they have wisdom, we say they care about our kids, and we send our kids
so
there.
then what
stuff
happens
like that.
when you get into discriminatory practice? Say, well, this teacher can have one, but this type of teacher can't have one.
I mean, that's the same practice we have now about who can have a firearm or not for whatever reason.
Where?
So it would be.
What's that? Where? How? Give me an example there.
Oh, if you got a criminal background, you can't have a firearm.
What type of criminal background?
Felony.
Dealing with a firearm? Because any felony.
Say it again?
If you got a felony dealing with a particular firearm crime, right? Because you can have a felony dealing with money laundering and you still can carry a gun. Is that right?
I'm not sure of that. Is that true?
Yeah.
I thought if you had any kind of felony, I mean, I'm fine with. I don't think it'd be discriminatory. I just think it'd be, if our school is a certain size, our faculty is a certain size, and we're having this discussion amongst leaders about how we want to do it and what we want to do, then, sure, you could have 10 people say, hey, we want to be one of those 2 or 3 people that get the right to do this. I mean, I don't necessarily think it would be discriminatory. I just think you got to choose 3, and 7 have to not be chosen. And so,
well, wouldn't the very nature of only having to choose 3 discriminatory from this face value? Because if there's a population of 100, and you say we've got to choose 3, that is weeding it down to discrimination.
How is it?
Because it's all or nothing. It's all or nothing, right? So the only way you can not be discriminatory if everybody has access to a gun, right? Otherwise, when you weed it down to whatever frame sets or presets you say it has to be, to narrow it down to 3 people, 10 people, or 20 out of the 100, you're being discriminatory.
If you want to say it's discriminatory,
it is
because of their. I mean, that's fine, but it's not negative discriminatory. It's not like discriminating against.
Why isn't it negative?
A race.
But what? Huh?
Why isn't it negative?
Yeah, because so we're not talking about race. We're talking. So I don't even understand how questions always go towards race and use discrimination. So I'm just simply saying, there's 100 people, and the law prescribes now that people can have firearms in a non-public school setting or religious setting, right? And you discriminate within that flock. You discriminate within those 100 people. I use 100 people because it's easier for math, but that's certainly discriminatory.
So so if this law passes, you would want every teacher to have a gun, or they're being discriminated against?
They're being discriminated against, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I disagree. I don't think they're being. Yeah. I don't think if a school and their leaders decide how they want to deal with protecting their school and being wise about it, about how to go about protecting it and not making sure that there's not an overflux of firearms or not going to that extreme to where saying we don't have any firearms in the school without an officer versus now we have every teacher being able to bring their firearm to school. I don't think that's wise, and let's go from the one side of the street into the ditch and to the other side of the ditch, because that's what we're saying to not discriminate means, when it's plenty of times where leaders in an organization decide to do something and they decide certain individuals to do it. You look at whether it's in the Bible, whether it's with churches, whether, you don't have everybody a deacon. You don't have everybody a deaconess. You don't have everybody a minister. It's not discriminatory. It's just if you have a gifting to something, if someone has experience with something,
one would argue
discrimination.
One would argue that's discriminatory too. Why is this person deacon over me? I mean, so regardless of how we show up discrimination and make it look cute, pretty, or ugly, it is what it is. I mean, and I think oftentimes either we accept it or we don't. I mean,
Do you think the firearms? I mean, I know you say you have a firearm, but you're also admitted that you like are a pacifist almost, to where like you don't see any reason why to use your firearm, and you don't really take. You said last time I talked to you, you didn't know when the last time you saw your firearm, and so
yeah.
I think
that conversation. I did go to the gun range probably a week or two after that and shoot it over there on 301.
Yeah, so I think again, it should be left up to the people with experience.
That is the trained law enforcement officers who go through the training consistently, who you're able to dial a number called 911 and get to a scene. There are schools who can afford resource officers, and those wise people you talk about, they should also put in their budget to afford and pay for armed security. But don't do it the cheap way and say we're going to put somebody who's responsible for educating and empowering our children to get them scholastically ready for the world and all these other things they got to do. On top of that, we want you to be a gun safety training person and do all this kind of stuff while being able to manage your own personal situation and whatever else it is, right? Mm-hmm. That's why there are many branches, right? And so everybody has their own thing, but oftentimes we try to make everybody be everything. So yeah, that's that. But I appreciate the phone call, sir.
Appreciate you.
All right, you take care. 252-407-8432. That's 252-407-8432 is the number to call to participate in today's conversation as we talk about things impacting our state and nation. So that's the question: what does good people with firearms look like? I don't know. I wish I would have saw that. All I had it on a thing, because again, oftentimes we see that on news. This was a really good person. You never would have expected this, and that's I don't know. You know, I think, and I'm not a anti-firearm person. Obviously, I have one, but why is it such a main conversation piece? I mean, I ain't gonna say the only, but one of the rights that it seems that people that live on this dirt in this land called America seems to protect and value the most is access to firearms versus a child's well-being to a sound basic education. The actual right to participate in the election process. We see all of these discriminatory barriers that people put in place throughout the history of this nation and including currently. But we don't really advocate for those things. And so I get it. You talk about the person stabbing 11 people in whatever store it was. Oftentimes it's the bystander effect that happens where people don't get involved. And oftentimes because of their lack of involvement, ultimately that individual will make you involved by obviously stabbing you. And so there is, then you kind of go with some other things that I kind of think about. Then you think about duty to respond, whether a person has a duty or not to respond based on familiarity, based on a number of other factors that I wouldn't even get into at this particular moment, but it just brings me to the fact of duty, right? Is that their duty to respond, but an obligation to respond. But I don't know. What I do know is that that law exists now, right? That law exists. That will happen in non-public schools, and I just wonder why that was a priority when the budget itself is not a priority. When the mini budget they proposed or passed, they passed, waiting for the governor to sign it, reduces Medicaid spending by $40 million. When they seem to not have any consensus on how to deal with rebuilding Western North Carolina. When there's crazy conversation about roundabouts in Rocky Mount. Again, I go back to people say they want growth. People say they want opportunity. People say they want to change, but do they really? When all the statistical data points to, and especially if you live outside of Rocky Mount, not even live outside of Rocky Mount, but just travel outside of Rocky Mount and see the number of communities in larger cities, including on major highways, essentially creates a roundabout type situation to get off X's and things because of the ability they have to reduce traffic accidents and ultimately traffic fatalities. That is the education and wisdom that people beyond these parcels of land that's in the Rocky Mountain have that lived experience with. And again, I get the change is uncomfortable and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, if you have an idea for development and increased traffic in a particular area, you don't want to change your road infrastructure when there's a problem. You want to already have your infrastructure in place to prevent it from being a problem, or at least mitigate that problem before it's even realized. So that's wisdom. That's lived experience, and bringing that experience to a community such as Rocky Mount, so we don't have to get it wrong based on seeing someone else got it wrong before. And I think that is the same thing that Governor Stein was saying, that here it is, the lack of training. So he never really said that he was against having guns in, and again, I had to talk to him to get his full story, but I'm just saying, based on his veto message, he never said I dislike guns in public schools. I dislike guns in public schools based on the lack of training that those individuals would have. And for that, I concur. With that thought and sentiment there. But again, they attach a number of other things to it. But out of all the elected Democrats in the House, we found our representative, Shelley, that represents Edgecombe, Martin, and Bertie County, that thought this piece of legislation was good to go. And so kudos to him for whatever rationale and reasoning that he had for that. I think I said my good morning since maybe I didn't. I don't think I did. Okay. So good morning to Alice Bailey, Peggy Parker Harrison, Will Manley, Jacqueline Leonard Randolph, Betty Archambault. Good morning to all of you all. Thank you so much for tuning in to Wncr-Tv Now. And I see they'll continue the gun conversation. So yeah, that Stephen Johnson has I guess a deal with schools, but until there's the creation of something that gives an alternative, you have to work with what you have. Hey, caller, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. Have you ever asked Mr. Willingham to come to your show and explain some of his doings?
You know what? I will ask him that. The last time we asked him that, I think he said someone asked him, and it was like a no. But I will ask him. That was through third party, so I asked him myself. Absolutely.
Because, if we don't hear from this person and have their thoughts on anything, then we don't really know, you just out there voting, for this person.
Right.
But I watch the morning show from time to time, not every day, but I'm saying you'll get some idea of why he did it. And then he should want to explain it to the people.
Yeah.
Why you do something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing it, explain to your voters why you did it.
Right.
And also, a friend of my sister's house got flooded down in Durham. Do you know she said that they give you a number to call to try to get in touch with somebody with FEMA or whatever? She said she was on the phone 3 hours and still didn't get nobody.
Wow.
Can you imagine your house done flooded out? You trying to get some help. They give you a number and you can't get nobody. Same thing with Social Security. Try calling them. I had a problem. I called one day. I put my phone on speaker. I'm just cleaning my house and doing whatever. 2 whole hours. But I stayed up there because you got to start over if you hang up.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady said, well, ma'am, we just don't have that much help. I am so sorry. She said, but I'm just telling it like it is. We're short of help. Okay. Then hire somebody. But that's not her job to do that because they're cutting jobs everywhere. But it's sad when you really need to know something and you got to wait on the phone that long. It's pathetic. because you ain't got enough people at the driver license place. Go by there some mornings, they say about 6 o'clock. Folks line up. Do this make any kind of sense? And now they talking about, well, you can drive on them an extra two years, but you can't drive out the state. You can't do this. You can't do that. No, what happened? You used to didn't have to do all this to get a driver license.
Right.
One lady I know, they said she just fell out. It was so hot out there.
Wow. Yeah.
Then finally they going to tell her, come on in. We're going to let you come on in. Okay, the woman could have died. She won't coming in and she won't going out, but she was dead. You don't know people's situations. And you done got off work that day. You can't just take off work every day trying to do something. And everybody can't get on the computers and try to get licensed, because sometimes you just got to go in person.
Right.
And more young people are getting their license, so the line is going to get what? Longer and longer.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did just send a text message to Representative Willingham, inviting him to come on the show to talk about. In fact, the email said, "Good morning. A caller suggested that you coming on the show to talk about your recent vote in the General Assembly. What day would work for you?" So I did send him a message. That is at 9 o'clock on August the 4th, 2025. And so we have invited Representative Shelley Willingham, and I'll follow up with that text message with a phone call later today if I don't hear from him. But typically he texts us back, so we shall see. But anyway, I will see you next time on Wncr-Tv Now to talk about things impacting our state, our city, and our nation this and every morning. And good to see all of you all for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget, Pop's Diners open from 11 till 6 today, 132 South Church Street, downtown Rocky Mount, as well as I will be in Ward 3 talking to voters and people of that nature. In fact, yard signs are in. They should be probably on the way on the UPS truck as we speak. So we'll see you next time on WNCR TV. Now, you make it a great day. All right. Well, let's take this phone call since the TV don't want to go off. That's crazy. Hey, caller.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Doing well.
This is William Manley.
Yes, sir.
Man, first of all, I hope you be victorious in running for your ward.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
And you got my support.
Appreciate it.
And also, man, you was talking about the guns in the school.
Mm-hmm.
I've been involved in several of those active shooters, documenting it. I've been in the class. I know you said this was like for private schools and stuff, but I think I can see where it could be a good idea, but I would have to err on caution, say it wouldn't. Is to have better security, find better way to secure the place to protect it. Because just from what I've seen in some of when we was in the classroom, they had the person coming down with the rifle, and everybody that was in that room probably wishing that they had a gun, talking about it. But what my thing is, like, man, you gonna go out there and get everybody else killed because it just didn't feel like they had what it takes to handle something like that, in an active shooting. I know, like I said, it's different scenarios. It might be one person, whatever, but I just felt like at that time for us was to secure ourselves, find ways to protect ourselves, lock the door and all that, open windows, you get close where you couldn't see them. And then some of the time when I was out there in the hall, you seen people that seen seen the officer, or they try to take them out, or they want to run back and get their friend. How many? I be thinking about you putting other people in danger, and it really takes a special type of training. Even though guns, I have a gun, I know gun safety and all of that, and all this and that. And if I was a teacher, I'd be thinking, is I'm going to protect my class, or I'm going to self-preservation, worry about myself. All of that too plays in factor. And then too, like the next class, if he allowed to have one, why come I can't have one?
That part. Exactly.
Because I have the right to, for self-preservation, to bear arms too. So it is discriminatory.
Mm-hmm. I
just feel like the schools just need more. They need more security. Whether it's scanning, and I know somebody still probably find a way to get in there, but I think that's what they need to start with before they even should start with addressing having guns in school, because I just don't think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it made it law, my brother. But I appreciate you.
Yeah, unfortunately, but
they did.
Well, that's my opinion on it.
Thank you, sir. And I thank you for the endorsement, my friend.
You're welcome.
All right, you take care. I thank you again for tuning in to Wncr-Tv Now as we talk about things impacting our state, our city, and our nation. We certainly appreciate each and everybody for tuning in with us on weekday mornings from whatever time I get here to 9 a.m. How about that? In between 8 o'clock hour there. We certainly appreciate each and every one. We'll see you next time on Wncr-Tv Now.